For Part 3, install and configure the DNC-Max Server. There are 4 topics in this part. 3.1. Software Manager for License Key. 3.2. Installation. 3.3. Link up database and MDC-Max. 3.4. Configure MDC messages. For this part, we will show you how to install, run and configure the DNC-Max Server. There are 2 ways to run the DNC-Max Server. Either using the DNC-Max Server application or using the DNC-Max Service Manager application that enables you to install the server as a Windows service. In this guide, we will use the DNC-Max Service Manager to install the DNC-Max Server as a Windows service that runs in the background and automatically starts if the PC is rebooted. Please note, you will need a valid license key to run the DNC-Max Server as a service. If you try to start the server in trial mode, you will get an error stating failure accessing the install service. If you have reseller license key, then you can get CIMCO Software Manager installed to run this float license key for all CIMCO products. Here is a guide for you how to install and run license key file. You may have Software Manager installed at the first part. In trial demo mode, if the days left 0, you will get some reminder window of license key not found, then you have to use reseller license key file, click Contact License Server. If you already have installed the CIMCO Software Manager and installed the license key file, then you will not get this reminder window again and again. Find the reseller license key file we are going to install and run it. First, double-click the key file. It appears a window of License File Viewer, then click the button Install License File. Then, pop up the windows to start License Server, click Yes. You will see info box showing license file successfully installed. Click OK. Open CIMCO Software Manager, you will see the license is running. If not running, you may have to do one step more, click button of Choose License File. Open license file to install. Then click the button Start Running License Server, you will see the license list of each CIMCO product in left window. You also can get detailed information of license when you click the button Configure. To install the DNC-Max Server as a service, this will open the CIMCO DNC-Max Service Manager dialog. Click the Install button to install the server as a service. You will be asked what Windows account the DNC-Max service should use to log on. For this guide you can simply use the system account. Click OK to continue. To start the server, click the Start button. The DNC-Max server will now start and run as a service in the background. The service will automatically start every time the PC is rebooted. Once the server is started, you will see values in the fields active ports and files send, receive indicating that the server is running properly. To enable the DNC-Max server to work with both the database and the MDC-Max client, we need to enable its NC-base and MDC-Max links. In the DNC-Max Service Manager dialog, click the Setup button to enter the server configuration dialog. In the preview menu, select NC-base and check the option Enable CIMCO NC-base link. After doing this, the fields below become active. Enabling the NC-base link establishes a connection between the DNC-Max server and the NC-base database server. This also tells the DNC-Max server to start storing MDC messages, configurations, and more in our database. In the following we specify which NC-base server and specific database to use. From the drop-down menu Database Type, select the CIMCO Standard Database. Keep the default NC-base server name, localhost, and the default NC-base server port, 3306. Enter root as the database user ID and enter the default password CIMCO123. The field DNC-Max host name can be left blank. In rare cases where clients experience connection problems, entering the host name of the PC where the DNC-Max server is running can help. Do not specify the IP address of the DNC-Max server if your network is using DHCP. For more information, see the documentation. Make sure the DNC-Max port number is set to the default value of 4442. Please note, the DNC-Max port number defines the port used by clients to communicate with the DNC-Max server. This is not limited to the DNC-Max client, since both the MDC-Max client, NC-Base client and DNC-Max client all use this port. Finally, in the tree view menu, select MDC-Max and check the option Enable MDC-Max Link. Leave the other fields checked as well. Click the OK button to save the changes. When asked, confirm restart of server and wait a moment for the server to restart. The DNC-Max server always need to restart when changes are made to its configuration. For configure MDC messages. All the functionality in MDC-Max is based on messages, also referred to as events, but you might ask, where do these messages come from? Actually, it is the DNC-Max server that creates all messages. As we will see later, it is the machine ports on the server that defines when and what kind of message should be created. For example, when a CTS high signal is detected on a serial machine port, this port can be configured to create, or trigger, a cycle start message. When the CTS low signal is detected on the port, this can create a cycle stop message. We are not talking about physical hardware ports, but about the ports defined and configured on the DNC-Max server. These virtual ports receive the raw data from the network or cables connected to the server PC and, based on how the ports are configured, the ports, DNC-Max server, create messages. Messages can also be created by operator screens when buttons are pushed or input received. We will return to this later in this guide. For now, we will focus on configuring the messages that will be created by our virtual machine ports. We will need the messages cycle start, cycle stop, alarm on, and alarm off. In the DNC-Max Service Manager dialog, click the Setup button to, again, enter the server configuration dialog. Select Event, Messages in the Tree View menu and check the field Enable Events, Messages at the top. As you can see, there is already a long list of predefined messages. For this guide, we want to use the messages cycle start and cycle stop to determine if our machine is running or not, and the messages alarm on and alarm off to determine if the machine is down. The first two are already set up by default, but we need to manually add the messages alarm on and alarm off. To add a new message, you can either duplicate an existing message and modify the duplicate, or you can create a new message. To create a duplicate, select the message you want to duplicate and click the plus icon at the right side of the list. To create a new message, scroll to the bottom of the list and click outside on the empty row so no message is selected, then click the plus icon. We will use the duplicate method. Select the message cycle start and click the plus icon to duplicate it. Enter alarm on in the message tag field and alarm on in the log text field. Delete the existing value in the field reserved program name since this is not needed. The message tag is the unique identifier for the message and is always written in uppercase, without spaces, and only using English characters. The log text is the human-readable name of the message which is used in log entries. We also need to create the alarm off message. Duplicate the alarm on message we just created, and change the message tag to alarm off and the text log to alarm off. When done, click the OK button at the bottom of the dialog and click Yes when asked to restart the server. The server must restart in order to activate the changes. Once restarted, verify that the line running MDC multi-threaded engine is shown in the server log. That way you know MDC is activated. Click the Close button to close the DNC-Max Service Manager. Please note, it is possible to test the MDC setup and the messages without connecting an actual machine. This can be achieved by creating an operator screen in the MDC-Max client with buttons for triggering the different machine messages. We will show how this is done later in this guide after we have created and configured a machine port on the DNC-Max server.